Hey guys, Darren Carr here, coach of Wiser Sports, and welcome back to another episode of a team review out of round 16, the final bye round. It is now done, and we are back to best 22 and back to 2 trades a week. I, for one, will be sadly missing the buys. I've quite thoroughly enjoyed my time with the buys. I just love the unique side of it where there's different strategies. It also keeps the guys that are not tracking so well, which is been my team so far this year. And, you know, I've been able to improve my side throughout the buys and been able to catch up a lot of ranks during that period as well. So I thoroughly enjoy the buys, and I'll be sadly missing them. But I do think it's going to be quite a bit of a struggle now, now that most teams are complete. I think we're going to find that it's going to be very hard to sort of make movements from here on out. For the remainder of the seasons, you really got to get on those guys that need to jump for the remainder of the season and have those pop scores. But how did I go in round 16? I scored at 1880, so another very nice way to finish off the buys with a top 2,000 round rank, so 1,500 there, roughly. And that moved me up about 600 spots again in overall. Wouldn't just been nice to get those extra 66 points to jump me in the top 2K, but let's see what we can do for the remainder of the season. But that means I think I jumped up around 4,000 spots overall in the buy. So pre-round 11, I was just outside the 6K. So to jump up 4,000 ranks is pretty nice. Even before that, I was at 9,000. So definitely have been getting the team in the right direction for a decent amount of time now. So yeah, looking forward to the end of the season. But my +3 and -3 this week, it's probably tough. But I think I have to give my +3 to Brody Grundy. Like, to bring in a player for his debut game in my side, and to put up the equal high score of the round alongside Nick Dacos, wasn't hugely expected. I was expecting a decent score, but definitely not the equal highest score. So he can get my +3 and welcome aboard onto the team. Definitely back to his ruck pick ways. He's definitely an interesting one for those that do not own him. He's getting very highly priced, and he obviously has that massive run towards the end of the season. So if you're looking to make a change in your ruck line, he's definitely a viable option. He's got the double rucks this week against Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson, which, if you look at what Royal Marshall was able to do against them last week or on the weekend, then I don't think you have too much of an issue there. So definitely a viable option to jump on if you're looking to make a change there. So he can get my +3. My -3, it could go to a couple players because there was a lot of underwhelming scores here. But I will just go to... Oh, come on. Who can I go to? It'll go to Harry Sheezel. You know, he's the most highly owned... highly priced there at nearly 1.1. Obviously dropped to 65 and a pretty heavy game against Hawthorn there. Got absolutely dominated. So he just couldn't have an impact at all. Still had 20 disposals, but just couldn't get the marks that he's normally used to, or even have an impact on the stoppages, whether it was just due to the dewiness of the ground down there in Tassie, or just really wasn't feeling up to it. They just didn't try and do anything differently. Like, they normally throw him back a little bit if they're getting dominated and need a bit more of the movement back there. So 65 just is not good enough. Dropped his lowest score so far this year by a fair big margin, and there is some concern where he may not play this week due to an injured shoulder, which he sustained late in that last quarter. So that's a bit unfortunate. But from all reports, it sounds like he's avoided serious damage to his shoulder, so no structural damage there. Fingers crossed he does get up for the game on Thursday night. That is a quick turnaround for them, so that was the only big concern. But all reports are saying that he just needs to get through a test tomorrow and he should be good to go. But they expect him to play. So that is good news for our Sheezel owners. Otherwise, it would be a bit of a tough call whether we look to trade him. Given the season we're in now, typically you just jump off these sort of players that do have a lingering injury and could be out for multiple weeks. But more than likely, it is just going to be a 1 weeker if he does manage to miss. And luckily, if all things go to plan, then I will have Tom McCarthy being able to, cover him for this week, worst case scenario. So Fingers crossed he gets up, but yeah, we've got contingency plans if that doesn't go through. But that is my +3 and -3. My captaincy option, so I did just go with Nick Dacos into Dawson. Obviously, Nick Dacos got that 137. I said my line was 130 or 140. I sort of took it in the middle with a 135. I thought, Dawson could go 150 or even more than that, but is it really worth the risk for an extra 13 points? Probably not. So I ended up taking the 113. It ended up being the equal highest score of the round, and obviously Dawson didn't really put up the bigger score like we expected. So just didn't really show up in that game, unfortunately. But yeah, really happy with how my captains performed this week, and just quietly the captain challenge is getting pretty spicy. Caught up a fair few more points to those top guys, still sitting number 4, but catching the guys like Bams, Fantasy Freak, and Fantasy Nuts, and the Ball Boys Mitch there. So yeah, it's getting heated up. My trade review. So overall, pretty happy with my trades again. Obviously trading in Brody Grundy, it's hard to go past having a positive round when you trade in the one that has the highest score of the round. So really pleased I brought him in. Liddy obviously was always going to work out no matter what he really scored. So really happy to have him. Scored that 61. So positive there off the bench. I did loop him on at the end just as a decent rookie score. Didn't count for me in the end. I think my scores that dropped off was him. So Liddy. Then it was the likes of Harry Sheasel, and then it was Callum Mills, I believe. So my lowest, sorry, no, Callum Mills did score because I only had 21. Sorry, I only had 20 playing, so only 2 scores dropped off, being Liddy and Sheasel, unfortunately. So yeah, Callum Mills did play there. But Billy Wilson was the only sort of failed pick, I guess. He did. It looked like he was doing okay, particularly in that first quarter. He popped up for a few good moments, but was quiet for the remainder of the game and did not play at all in the final term. Didn't have any injury in terms of the injury report after the game, so I'm not really sure why he didn't play, but he was listed as injured on the bench, so just going to watch out what's going on there, whether he's a red dot or not. But either way, I needed to trade in a defender, so he was sort of the only option I had. I could have gone to Bo Allen. I didn't even check how he sort of went. If that was probably a better option I could have gone to. How do you even spell it? Is that Allen? Yeah, it is. He put up that 42, so probably could have gone there, but I think he was a little bit more expensive at that price tag. So yeah, either way, wouldn't have worked out. But I needed a defender, so not too upset about that. Even if he does manage to be dropped and he just becomes a bit of a red dot, I'm really happy to throw away that position at this stage. So overall, really happy with my trades. These guys obviously on the bye. Angus Clark, he probably could come back this week and continue to perform well. We'll have to wait and see on that one, but happy he's gone either way. Caden Cleary was a red dot, so it doesn't really matter. And Josh Dunkley, we'll see how that sort of pans out for the remainder of the season, but I had my reasons to trade him out. So overall, happy with my trades this weekend. Just quickly going through, player by player, just touching on them. I already sort of touched on Sheasel, but Nasiah started really slow in that game. I think he was on like 12 points at quarter time. Only touched it like twice. So he really got going towards the end of the game, just as he does. He's been super consistent all year. Only dropped 3 scores under 100 so far this year. Just shows his consistency, and he's shown a ceiling this year. So he'll be a good player for a long period of time for us in fantasy. So he just gets it done. Rosie did extremely well on the Thursday night against Carlton. If you had him as a sneaky VC, definitely would have been happy with a 120 there. Carlton are just a rabble and they're just giving up points galore, so that could be a good news for the likes of Dacos this weekend if he can avoid the Chincotta tag. But Chincotta really didn't do anything in this game to either Butters or Rosie, so I'm not too fussed with him just yet. Sinclair, super disappointing, 79. That's his back-to-back bad scores. So if you don't own him, you're not probably not looking at him. He does have a decent run towards the end of the year, particularly this sort of patch, this 5-week patch from round 19. So for those that own him, I'm probably more in the hold camp, just hoping it can turn around. He's still got the defend halfback role where he's taking a lot of kick-ins. I think he took 7 kick-ins on the weekend, so it seems fine, but he's just not getting the marks that we're sort of used to, or nearly as many possessions now that Nasai is taking a lot of them. So I'm not fussed if you want to jump off of him, use the money that he has remaining, but just know that he's got a decent run coming up, that he could pop up a few decent scores and really get that average up again. So if you're in a position like mine where I'm sort of getting the remaining of these mid-price guys off, or even getting my final rookie off, he's in the hold camp. But if you're in a much better position, I don't mind jumping off him. Callum Mills was super disappointing again, 67, his lowest score since his return, obviously, bar that first game where he was managed quite heavily. Time on ground dropped a fair bit, just really didn't get amongst it at all in this game. Still had the halfback role, but obviously with Roberts back, just took a fair few points off of him, unfortunately. So there's some question marks around what his role is going to be going forward, or what his potential is to score. So I'm willing to hold him for another week, but in saying that, I'm probably going to be looping him with Tom McCarthy on my bench. So obviously McCarthy plays Friday night, so I'll be able to, if McCarthy say goes 85 plus, I probably just sub him in over Callum Mills up against Fremantle, who has been a tougher matchup for designated kick-out players. You saw what Sinclair was able to do on the weekend. So yeah. If you want to jump off him, I wouldn't stop you. If you didn't trade him in, he's probably one you're not jumping onto now, just with that roller coaster of a bit of a ride. So a bit disappointing after what was some decent performances in the 2 previous matches for him. So unfortunate there. Tom McCarthy just continues to get it done. He looks like he's going to be a very good scorer for a little while in this role. Lost a few of those kick-ins that would have cemented just giving a few extra points, but still just got it done, worked well around the ground, got a few intercepts as well, so just puts himself in the right spot. So he's definitely a must-have if you still don't own him. He's definitely one we can afford to have on ground if you are one of those teams that are still running a rookie. He's one I'd definitely be prioritising on your field. Moving into the midfield here, Dawson, 105, like I said, a little bit disappointing in what was an extremely easy matchup. Just didn't really look interested at all in this game. Wasn't just sort of floating around where the ball was going over his head consistently, whereas normally he'd try and get himself into the pack as best as possible to give him a chance to get those marks. But yeah, just wasn't really getting there, letting his team do a lot of the work. So yeah, it's taken a bit of his ceiling off, which is a bit unfortunate, but he's still got a couple good matchups coming. So if you jumped on him, I wouldn't be too disappointed there. He should have some decent games coming up, particularly this weekend against Melbourne, who do love to give up a lot of marks. So hopefully he can get amongst that. He'd be another decent captain option this weekend. Andy Brayshaw just missed out on the ton there. He was tracking fairly well in this game. Lower time on ground, which is a little bit frustrating, but yeah, he's just doing just fine. No need to worry about that one there. Nick Dacos, already spoke about him, but he just got it done in that game. Probably missed out on a few points with 3 behinds. If he just kicked straight, it would have been much better, but you've got to be happy with an equal high this round. So if you had him VC'd, you would have been laughing. Bontempelli, man, 72, super disappointing. I've owned him for the last 4 weeks, and yeah, not getting it done, averaging in the 70s, I think. So that is just super frustrating. And there's question marks with what to do with him. I think we're holding this week with North, but if he doesn't get it done, then there has to be some valid questions about whether we trade him out, because he does have some tougher matchups. You know, Crows are one of the hardest matchups this year. Brisbane are an orange matchup, so question marks with what happens there. Josh Dunkley probably does a bit of a tagging role on him, or just a negating role anyway, so that has question marks. Essendon are okay, so that's their only sort of a decent matchup, but then GWS are also a tough matchup. So next sort of 5 weeks are tough. It does sort of open up after that, but just the way he's going at the moment, it's not looking great. Just with a few other things in there. So question marks over him. If you have him, he probably could jump off, but I'd prefer to hold him this week. If I'm sure you have other issues in your side, so I'd be holding this week if it could. Ned Long, disappointing again, back-to-back sort of those 80 scores in some decent matchups. I believe he'd be better this week. Colton are a bit more of a contested game style, so that means he'll be around more contest, means more tackles for him, and a few more disposals here and there. So I'm firmly in the camp of holding him this week, even though his break even is a bit high and he's starting to lose a bit of coin now. I'd definitely be holding him. I think there's other concerns in our side, like a Mills and stuff, and even a Dockett, he probably falls in that camp, which I'll speak about now. So yeah, I'm firmly holding long, but if he's the worst player in your team and putting up the lower scores, it is one that can go. This time of year is really hard because a lot of teams are in different scenarios. Whether you're have a completed team or you're still trying to get your final rookies off, and who your worst player is, it's really hard to go a list of who needs to go unless there's a clear cut injury as whatnot. So yeah, it's hard to give a little bit of a kick here and there, but long can go. Doherty put up that 93, sorry, which on paper looks good, but his role significantly changed in that second half of that game where they were getting heavily beaten by Port. So there are some concerns with what his role is going to be going forward. It's probably worth just holding for one more week, but if you are seriously concerned, I wouldn't stop you from jumping off because he could easily drop a 60 or even worse this week if he's out there on the wing for the entire match. So I'm happy for you to jump off him if that's the case, but he's just getting it done right now. He's still got a decent break even, so we'll see how that sort of lines up this week against Collingwood. Obviously, one of the toughest matchups you can ask for this season. So yeah, definitely worthwhile considering if you want to jump off if you're in that position. Kobe McKercher gets it done again with finally hits a ton since his halfback role. 34 touches, 4 marks, one tackle. Good to see him get a few more marks. I think that was more so due to the Hawthorn pressure, just really keeping them locked into their back half a lot. So he took a few of those marks based off kick-ins and just getting the +6 there. So that was a positive sign that he does have that ceiling to him. So yeah, he's just getting it done. It's still not too late if you don't have him. He's getting a bit more pricey, especially with what we all paid for him around that 600k mark. But for what he's putting up and how consistent he's been, he's definitely one that if you are struggling for cash, you could jump on him fairly easily. I spoke about Liddy. Cherry is definitely an interesting discussion this week with how poor he's been in the last sort of 5 weeks. Only put up the 1 ton with a lot of 80s and 60s. 80s and 90s. Decent matchup this weekend against English. Grundy went 130 against him. So, and English is, bit battered up, a bit beaten up at the moment with a few lingering issues at the moment. He went off for a period of time in that Swans game on Friday night. So there's some question marks around his fitness. So, Cherry should have a decent matchup. I'm in the camp. I'm just going to hold him. I don't want to be wasting too many trades. But if you're in a strong position, I wouldn't stop you going from a Cherry to a Grundy if that's what you're looking for. I think a Cherry's run is decent though for the remainder of the season. He's got Gorn straight up the week after, which is tough. Grundy, I think, is a bit of an orange matchup at the moment, but shouldn't be too bad, but then it does start to open up a fair bit from there for those 4 matches particularly. You probably want to own him for those. So we'll see how he sort of goes. We know the big ceiling that he can have when he's on his game, but just not currently getting it done at the moment. Kennedy dropped his first sub 100 in a long time, which is a bit disappointing for those that did just jump on. He still kicked 2 goals, just didn't really have the disposals in that one. Plenty of tackles, just wasn't getting it done, unfortunately. He'll be fine, but probably won't feature in the trade-in targets this week, just because he is so expensive now, and you probably should have had him for the last 4 weeks after the bye anyway. So, yeah, Luke Jackson continued to get it done, even though the role sort of changed a fair bit. He is sort of playing a bit more of that full forward role rather than primary ruck. Obviously, Sean Darcy coming in changes that a fair bit, but it was good to still see him around the ball playing as a midfielder here and there. He still got it done with a 107, kicked 2 goals, 16 hitouts, and a couple of 8 tackles in there as well, which is huge for him. Sean Darcy's still just got to get managed every now and then, so he's still one that is definitely worth holding on to. If you don't have him, it's probably a bit too late now. You're paying a fair bit of coin, $1.02 million is definitely overs for what we expect from Luke Jackson. Probably a 90 to 100 sort of guy. He's priced well over that now, so probably not worth jumping on, in my opinion. Isaac Rankin, disappointing. I will say that. Disappointing in a big matchup. He was looking really good at halftime. I think he was on like 63, and I thought this was a good hold. He probably hits a ton here, if not even goes a bit bigger. Really slowed down in the second half. Only had, I think, 19 points, which is extremely disappointing. It looked like he was nowhere. It didn't seem like he was interested in the ball at all, and is terrible in the midfield, I must say. He just does not know how to predict where the ball's going to go. It just seems like he's always a liability in there. In my opinion, he just does not know how to find the ball in there. So, he's one that is definitely a worthwhile trade at if you were a holder like myself throughout the buys. He's definitely one that can go. I will say though, he does have Melbourne this week, so that should be another decent matchup. So yeah, he should be close enough to the top 6 mid forwards. But if you don't have one of those top guys, then he's definitely one that you could trade out to get in if you're really in a good position. But yeah, is an interesting one that could go. Caleb Daniel, another 70, just 3 70s back to back. Again, super consistent at that, but not getting it done at the moment. So he's another one that could go. Bulldogs this week is a bit of a tough matchup, so that's interesting. But the run after that is pretty nice. So I think this period particularly are pretty green, and then obviously Richmond as well. So it's a big question mark whether we look to trade him out. I think it's going to be close enough that you could hold on to him, but I don't think he's going to hurt you if you do trade him out because, looking back at what he's scored previously when he's gone up against these good matchups, it's not been amazing anyway. So I'm not super concerned if you do trade him out. It's just really trying to find that next best player that's going to put up these better scores, maybe like a Myers or something like that. That could be a way of a leg up. He's definitely a target for those that don't have him up against West Coast this week. Besides that is pretty much my team. Finn O'Sullivan, obviously there in the utility, 38. He can be gone in my team this week with that decent amount of money in his head. I think he even had a bit of an injury, so he may even be actually out of the side with a calf. So a bit of watch this space for this one. I'm not really sure what happened there. So that is the team. Not really too much else to report realistically. I think that's about it. Hopefully the team holds up and no injury concerns come out of it. But what am I looking to do this week? I have already made my trades, and as I said last week, it was to get the likes of Rolliston. I really wanted him as long as he holds his spot. If he doesn't, then I will look elsewhere. There's a couple of decent other options that I will look at jumping on with decent break evens. An algo is definitely an option down there at a cheap price. I'll pull up the break evens here quickly. Where is it? Dua or Dua, however you want to pronounce it, is obviously definitely a play if you wanted to go there as well. Obviously was a bit injured or a bit sore out of that game last week, so he did miss. So he's still at a decent price point with a decent break even. If you want to go there, I'm still probably avoiding it. May is obviously an easy one to jump on if you're looking for a cheap option. He's sub 300k with a negative 11 break even. Algo was the one I mentioned. He put up a nice 60 for Richmond against Adelaide, put up 2 goals. It just overall looked very energetic and looked like he was a decent player, so I wouldn't mind jumping on him with a bit of an easier matchup and a decent load of fixtures the next 3 weeks, particularly, and just with this price point, 12k over the basement and decent break even. Besides that, probably not really touching these sort of middle price guys, unfortunately, and that's about it for really the downgrade options this week. But I have grabbed Stewart as my upgrade. Leaves me about 50k left over. Like I said, Stewart was my target this week. Just with the decent matchup against Richmond, he should go quite well with a decent amount of marks off halfback if they choose to just chip it around. And at a decent price point with a decent break even should make a bit of money as a bit of a mid-pricer that can get it done for a period of time where I'm just sort of getting these last sort of mid-prices off. He can be one that sticks around for a little while. So this is how my team is at the moment. That does leave me with Tom McCarthy on the bench. Like I said, I will loop between him and Callum Mills. Obviously playing a bit early, I will lock him in early if he does play well. And I have no rookies on my field this week. Obviously, Rolston back there. I still do have Lohman if he was to go. I did trade out Johnson instead of Lohman just purely due to grabbing a midfielder and obviously a defender. Just with the DPP, I couldn't trade out Lohman. So fingers crossed he gets a game and continue to generate cash with how he's been performing recently. And I do expect Johnson to sort of be dropped with how many defenders Essendon are expecting to have back. So if you still have him, definitely worthwhile looking at trading him out. But we will see on Thursday night whether he is named or not. And obviously, it's Finn O'Sullivan, as I mentioned, he can go if you're still an owner. But I've really taken all the money off my bench at this stage besides Lohman and really put it on my field. So team value is looking okay at 24.5 million roughly. And hopefully on track to have a decent back end of the year with only 8 rounds left to go, I believe. So, yeah. But that's pretty much about it, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, and hopefully you guys had a decent weekend. Hopefully you're happy to see the end of the buys done, and hopefully you're in a strong position to tack the final bit of the season. So all the best, guys. I'll catch you Wednesday for trade mode video, and yeah. Please leave a like, subscribe, do all those great things. And yeah, I'll see you guys then. Cheers, guys.